Pickle is working today where it wouldn't have worked several years ago. As you've probably heard from your daughters, if they've posted a picture on their Instagram wearing an outfit, they cannot possibly wear that outfit again. It fuels our marketplace of trying to keep up with these very fast, ever-changing trends. And then lastly, people are really interested in side hustles. And
Yeah.
we see that a lot of people making several $1,000s per month. We have some people making between $10,000 to $15,000 a month on the platform. So
Wow.
it's definitely a great way to earn some additional income.
That's pretty serious cash, particularly for a younger person that's just got the inventory sitting there and doesn't know what to do with it. And welcome to the Startup Innovators podcast, where we look at the entrepreneurial journey of some of the hottest companies on the planet. Today, I'm super pumped up. We've got Brian McMahon in the house, CEO of Pickle. Brian, how are you doing?
Great, Tim. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Brian, you don't look like maybe the typical client for Pickle, and we're going to get into that coming up. But I am surrounded by women, my wife, my daughters. If anyone watching this is a female and loves clothes and loves looking you kind of unique and different for special events, or do you just like to collect? Or you've got teenage daughters who literally fight each other and steal stuff out of their closets. You're going to want to listen to this because Pickle is changing the game for how fashion is distributed and how people can basically buy and rent. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's the Airbnb of fashion, but this idea of being able to look at inventory that previously didn't have any value beyond, what your personal experience was it, and now having the ability to not only sell, but to rent that out on occasions and even create a cash income on the side for a lot of young women and even maybe older women who have high-end brands. This is a whole new model and the game's totally changing. So I'm really excited to have Brian on.
Well, what a great intro. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks. So Brian, I do like to do a formal intro because a lot of times people aren't really aware of the guest. So I'm going to do that real quickly. I hope I won't botch it up too much. I'm usually pretty good. All
Yeah,
right.
no.
Brian McMahon, you are the co-founder and CEO of Pickle, the fast-growing peer-to-peer fashion rental marketplace that's turning closets into cash, as we mentioned, and giving Gen Z a new way to access style. Was started as a polling app. You noticed something bigger, and that was that people just didn't want advice, but they wanted to actually borrow what they were looking at, right? I just don't want to look at James Bond. I actually want to look like James Bond and feel like James Bond, but you can never get his stuff and it's too expensive to buy permanently. That's from a male perspective. That insight led you guys to build a community-powered rental platform that's kind of like a social network and kind of part of this gig or rental economy that's really exploding these days. Pickle has raised $20 million roughly from inception to date, which is a lot of money for a young company, from well-known VCs like Craft Ventures and FirstMark. And before that, you worked for Blackstone and Booz Allen. You've landed on the Forbes 30 under 30, which is a pretty damn cool thing. A lot of people make the 40 under 40, but there's something special about those that make the 30 under 30. And Brian did earn a BS in business information systems from the University of Maryland at College Park. And he was also a football player on the University of Maryland's football team. So with that amazing intro, I've got a big question that comes up as I read this. And that is, how does a former D1 football player, right, who works in the big Booz Allen consulting firm, then goes to Blackstone, there's a pattern kind of moving up of largesse here, all of a sudden become an entrepreneur in the female fashion space?
Yeah, I would say that's as soon as people learn a little bit about my background, that is the very first question that people will ask. And my friends always kind of joke and poke fun at me for it. But yeah, no, I mean, the story along the way is what connects all the dots. And I would say, so when Julia, my co-founder, and I were at Blackstone together, we initially left to start a different concept than what Pickle is today. So the initial idea was we were trying to help people make better purchase decisions through the use of social polling. So if you're in the market shopping for something new, whether it was a new suit, a dress, some shoes, etc., you could post a few options in the form of a poll to a community of users with similar style preferences, and they'd
Mhm.
basically be able to vote on what to buy. So the whole idea was to introduce social proof into the purchasing process. One of the things that we realized through that is we were looking at a lot of the comments of the polls, and people were recommending things that they already owned, and sometimes even in fact saying, hey, you can borrow this from me if you want. So we created this incredible community of users, but we kind of missed, or we saw a bigger opportunity in terms of how we could serve to their problems, right? So and that's what led us to pivot into what Pickle is today, which is the rental and resale marketplace. You just gave the great intro for. And so we've started with women's clothing and accessories, and then we'll eventually expand out into all other categories from there. So we call it, to use the Amazon example, kind of like our books. It's a very high volume category that's very easy to understand, and consumers really love. And then as we start to shift the consumer behavior of, well, if I want something it's high quality and new, and I can get it fast from someone right in my community, rather than having it buy new, you could actually borrow it from someone, and or access it through our marketplace. And so as that consumer behavior shifts, we'll start to onboard additional categories. And we've already seen things like a high definition Canon camera was our second most popular item rented on Pickle in
No
2025. So
way.
we've already started to see the shift, but for now we're continuing to focus on the clothing and accessories use case, and are pretty excited with how it's going.
That's really amazing. Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier, how the younger generation has a greater proclivity to rent things. And I was just thinking like music, for example, I own so much music I bought off of iTunes because I'm an older generation. I want to own it and take it with me and have it and give it to people. But my kids are like, Dad, why are you doing that? I have all your songs and 10 times more on my Spotify account for $5 a month or whatever the number is, right? And my thought, of course, as well, yeah, but if you ever lose Spotify, it's all gone. You have to start from scratch. Generational differences. Was that something that you kind of discovered quickly as you got into this, or how did that idea emerge?
Yeah, and I would say that the biggest reason Pickle is able to exist now is from some of the sharing economy pioneers before us. Think about your Ubers, where when you were younger, you probably also would have said it's crazy to hop in the back of some stranger's car. That's something our parents actually advised us not to
Well,
do.
I would say it's crazy to hop in the back of a car where there is no driver, but every
Well,
fifth
that's true
car
as
in my
well.
neighborhood is like that.
Right, right. That's true. Yeah, out in San Francisco, they've not yet infested the streets of New York City, but I know it's on the way. Similarly, though, staying in someone else's house, and
Yeah, for sure.
I think clothing specifically, and just people's belongings are probably even more personal than that. People have just gotten used to this as a concept, and have gotten really excited about it. And most of our audience is in the Gen Z millennial range. So we kind of say 18 to 35, with kind of the peak of the bell curve is right around 27 or 28 years old. So right on that cusp of millennial and Gen Z.
Yeah, I know that my kids, they like to go shopping in small places that have used clothes, for example, because they're looking for style or things that are different. And you can't necessarily get those in the new brand at the big retail store, but you can find these this way. And there are things that probably were in people's closets. And at some point in time, they said, look, I have this thing. I wear it, one time every 3 years. It's taking up space. Let's just get it out and give it to somebody. And then it goes to a thrift store or something like that. So I know that generation, again, from my own kids, they're really into that. They'll get their friends together and I'll say, where are you guys going this week? And they'll say, we're going out thrifting, looking for different things. So I'm going to introduce them to Pickle, of course, because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, please. I was just going to add the supply that does well on Pickle. There, thrifting is a category that it does see some volume for sure. The stuff that does really well on Pickle is the stuff that people have kind of acquired a little bit more recently. So it's stuff that's really new, in demand, very trendy items. And our job is really to improve the accessibility of those items. So whether it's something that feels a little too expensive to justify purchasing for 1 or 2 time use, or it's something that's so popular it's literally sold out everywhere else, you can still access it on Pickle. And that's definitely one of the key value props why people come to us is our dynamic supply. We don't have to go through this long procurement process where we're trying to predict what's going to be cool or trendy next year. Or we just have a lot of great users, whether they're just people very into fashion, tastemakers, influencers. They're out there, they're buying what they think is cool, and then they're uploading it right away to Pickle in order to start to earn some return on it.
Yeah. You mentioned Amazon earlier. If you think about Amazon, Amazon is kind of a distribution company. That's what it's really become at scale. And this is full peer to peer. Amazon didn't start peer to peer. They had inventory, they warehoused, and now they're kind of peer to peer, right? You join the network, and one company can sell a product, and it goes from them to you directly. This just seems like a mountain to achieve, to be able to delivery things where sometimes it's delivered in a pickle with 1 day notice, right? Big event. Or you could rent it for a couple of days. How do you build that distribution network up, and how do the economics make sense for this as well? Because if you're renting a dress for, pick a number like $100 or 200, $100 for the night or whatever it is, but then you've got to pay $60 to get it there in 1 day delivery. How did you go through that and make it all work? I know in one interview I saw that I believe you and your co-founder were actually doing the deliveries when you first started out yourself. So love
That's
to hear
true.
about that.
Yeah, that's true. Glad we're past those times.
Yes.
Although it was fun. So, yeah, I mean, I would say it's even faster than a day. Oftentimes, we see, especially in areas where there's a lot of product density, like a city like New York or LA or Miami right now, which are our three largest markets at the current time. We've seen deliveries as under an hour. I think the fastest one we've seen is 9 minutes. Because
Oh
we
my
tap
gosh.
into local delivery service providers. So think couriers similar to Uber Eats or DoorDash.
Mhm.
And we leverage that network to help distribute goods around. So the story with our delivery and our logistics or operations is Julia and I, when we first were launching the company, we thought, how can we make this as convenient as possible for everyone? I think a lot of people now just expect things to show up at their door, and they expect things very fast. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to be as close to the point of demand as possible. And that's when you're actually needing something, you're in a pickle, or you have something, you have an event that night. And so we started doing the courier deliveries ourselves. So what we would basically do is for the first 8 months, we did deliveries for the first, I guess, about 2,000 orders or so, both the delivery side and the return side. So we took about 4,000 subway rides across New York City, Brooklyn, Hoboken, just kind of wherever there was an order, we were going to try and get there. And it was a fantastic experience because we talked to every single customer for the first 8 months. We would go out, we would deliver from around 7 a.m. until like 9 p.m. Then we'd come home, we'd hop on a Zoom call. At the time, I was doing all the engineering for that. Julia was doing a lot of the kind of more product work, growth type work. And we would just talk about what customers told us that day. We would code that into the app, release it to the App Store, go to sleep and do it again 7 days a week for about 8 months. And, it does feel like kind of a blur now, but it was so informational, beneficial to the whole company, and it also taught us how to set up the operations of the company and how the logistics work, what the expectations are for this type of last mile delivery, what the customer sees, what the courier sees,
Yeah.
and that's allowed us to set up the network that we have today. We have a great team with some additional teammates that are obviously involved in maintaining this network. But yeah, the ways you can exchange items on Pickle are through this door to door courier solution. You can also meet up in person to exchange, and then you can ship the items if you're not within the local market. So we have a little over 350,000 items on the marketplace, all of which you could get
It's incredible.
within 2 days from pretty much anywhere in the United States.
That's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
What do you do about damage? So I've got a really cool dress. I don't, but my wife does. I want to clarify that. Uh, Sends it out for 3 days. It's a cool brand, cool look. We get it back. The person was going out to a big event. We get it back, and it's got like a wine stain spilled all over it, or the cusp on the back is broken off and maybe not usable, and I got to spend money to fix it. How do those guarantees work?
Yeah, great question. So we collect a good amount of information on people on Pickle, and it's all really to make sure that we're establishing a community of trust on the platform. And so we collect things. If it's a more expensive item, then we'll collect and verify your identity. And we always collect your credit card, and we have protections in place to make sure that it's not fraudulent credit card or prepaid card or things like that. Uh, all very legitimate. We always encourage renters to treat the items as if it were their own, and oftentimes a lot of people are operate on both sides of our marketplace. So a lot of the people that lend items out also rent and vice versa. And so that just creates this community of, I understand what it's like to lend something out and receive it back.
Yeah.
And that's, I want to
Yeah.
create as great of an experience for the person I'm borrowing from. We then also have, things like ratings, reviews, very similar to Airbnb. But yeah, so ultimately everyone's protected by our pickle protection policy. So if the renter damages something, they're liable for those damages. The way we work with the owner of the item to make sure we're fixing this is we'll send the item out to one of our repair partners who is some of the industry's best. And they'll take a look at the item, repair it, send it back, and then the renter would be charged for any of those damages.
Okay, very cool. So you actually have that service where you take care of that for the renter or seller, or
Yep.
renter,
Yeah,
I
we
guess,
want to
in this
make it
case. Yeah.
we want to make it as easy as possible. That's something we've rolled out recently and are really excited about it. Before we would work with them to find somewhere local where they could go and get it repaired. But we always want to make sure that we're helping our owners resolve those issues. The more involved we are in those issues early on, the better that we'll be able to solve them in the long run. So yeah, we want to make sure that everything works out well.
So pickle protection. I love that.
Exactly.
Kind of on a funny note, so when you were pitching this to VCs originally, you had to get a lot of rejections. I mean, this is the way the process always is. What were some of the big things where people were saying, "It's impossible, there's no way," where you'd walk out the door and go, "Oh my gosh, how are we gonna get over this? How are we gonna how are we gonna learn from this?"
Yeah, I would say, I mean, a lot of people have said that this has been tried before and it hasn't worked out. And, people have tried it in clothing or in
Yeah.
tools or in sporting and equipment and all these different things. And, I think that there's a couple reasons that Pickle is working today where it wouldn't have worked just several years ago. I think one is just the maturity of the sharing economy is it's just more normal than ever to, do what people are doing on Pickle. The second is these last mile logistics networks. So the ability to reliably get something within either a few hours or a few days is it really opens up a lot of opportunity for more demand. And then I would
Yeah.
say lastly is just kind of the social trends and social norms around, people are a little more hesitant to be an outfit repeater or, if they've, as you've probably heard from your daughters, if they've posted a picture on their Instagram wearing an outfit, they cannot possibly wear that outfit again. And, I think a lot of that, which may not always be great, is definitely fuels our marketplace of trying to keep up with these very fast, ever changing trends. And then lastly, it's just, people are really interested in side hustles. And
Yeah.
I think we see that a lot of people making several $1,000s per month. We have some people making between ten to $15,000 a month on the platform. So
Wow.
it's definitely a great way to earn some additional income.
I mean, that's pretty serious cash, particularly for a younger person that's just got the inventory sitting there and doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely. And but to answer your earlier question, yes, we did get a lot of no's. And a big reason it's been tried before, or it's very operationally intense. And I think that it just takes a lot of attention to detail and a lot of long days and late nights to learn how all this works and how we can make it as great as possible. And I think that just kind of some like relentlessly attacking the problem allowed us to really punch through.
Yeah, I think they say that, timing is really everything, whether you're too late or too early. And you look at the evolution of these different things. I mean, when Airbnb started, you're like, why would I lend a room out in my house to somebody? They're going to steal my stuff or break my stuff or harm me or whatever. And you thought, how will you ever overcome that issue of a
Hmm.
stranger potentially causing harm? It kinda happened, and so people kinda got used to that idea, and it's kind of worked itself out over time, and I think user reviews and these types of things where there's kinda credibility built in over time, where you got that feedback loop from the people that have used it, and then people start to get comfortable. A lot of people I know even here in San Francisco, they would not go in a Waymo because they're like, "It's gonna crash, it's gonna it's gonna do whatever it's gonna do, it's gonna run over my dog." And as more people use it and they're comfortable with it, they start spreading the word. And people say, well, I tried it. And then all of a sudden you look through and you see, oh, there's 4,000 user reviews with like a 4.8 average. And then you dip your toe in the water. So I think that probably has a big element of it too. I mean, people for years didn't want to thrift because they thought, well, I don't know where the clothes have been before.
Yeah.
And what's the condition? Or was the condition of the person that wore it? And it's icky. And now today people are like, hey, use clothes or use clothes. They can be
Yeah.
washed, they can be prepared. they're like brand new, and you can find some real, some golden eggs in there, even brands or just discovery of things that are worth a lot more. And sometimes you'll buy those. So yeah, I think that's changed. Like you said, this the social trend thing is really interesting as well because we didn't have influencers, 15 years ago. And now you had stars and movie stars and celebrities, and you look at what they were wearing. But I think there's a more real connection to a typical influencer, like a 19-year-old influencer who's showing you her stuff. There's kind of a, I don't know, it feels like there's a more intimate connection to her than a Hollywood star that's wearing, had a custom dress made by the biggest brand. Is that a
Yeah,
big part of the success right now with the timing?
it definitely is. And kind of to your earlier point, I would say that social proof does quickly drive new norms. And
Yeah.
we've absolutely seen that. As far as influencers go, it's definitely a part of our marketplace, a big part. And so from the early days, obviously launching a marketplace, the very first problem you have to solve is the chicken and the egg problem of you need the supply in order to have demand. And in order to have demand, you need to have supply. So it's kind of the, how do you get those on? And so I mentioned earlier that a lot of people in our marketplace are participate on both sides. And so what Julia had an idea very early on in the marketplace, actually right when we were launching, is to invite a lot of micro and nano influencers in New York to a free photo shoot in Soho. So we basically asked a photographer from FIT if they would come down and shoot a few pictures for these influencers, and they would give them photos to put onto their social media profiles. And we would tell the influencers, hey, bring some of the cooler items from your closet. You can change a few times, etc. And then when they got there, Julia would basically explain to them what Pickle is, why it would benefit them. Being micro and nano influencers, they weren't necessarily making a lot of money from brand deals. So it was a great opportunity for them to earn some passive income, and they had cool clothing. And then on the demand side, they needed to diversify the content that they were filming. And to do that, they needed to be able to access these items at a pretty low cost. We found people that were able to be dual participants in the marketplace. And so since then, influencers have definitely been a part of it. A lot of influencers will start closets. It's a great way to connect with their community, and to engage with their community. I think people really like the circularity aspect of it. A lot of influencers will get gifted a lot of clothes, and promoting circularity of those items and making sure that they're getting used is obviously really great for everyone. So
Yeah.
I would say they're definitely a big part of it, and the organic usage from influencers is has been really exciting to see, and it's been a big part of our growth as well.
Yeah, I could totally see where, being able to say, "Hey, I'm wearing the dress that so and so wore in some movie or wherever." It's not their dress. It's just like the dress or something that looks like it. But to
Hmm.
actually be wearing the dress that the person actually wore, um, if you want to be connected to that individual, I mean, having what they wore is probably about as close as you could be to feeling that emotional connection to that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see that still, even if it's not the exact dress from the exact influencer or celebrity, we will see if someone on the more famous side goes out and wears something, whether it's in St. Bart's or at a premiere or just some random video, that item will absolutely spike in popularity on Pickle. I think Taylor Swift causes some spikes when she got engaged. I forget what it was, but I remember the team talking about how it surged the searches, it surged views, saves, and rentals of items from that brand, as well as just items that just looked like it.
Yeah. I would imagine proms are pretty big. Is that a big place now? People get cool prom dresses?
We definitely see proms, which is fun, and we sometimes will get messages where it's sometimes we'll look through some of the notes that people put on transactions just to see what they're renting for, and we'll see people that write, I'm so and so's mom helping them rent this dress for whatever, and it's kind of funny. That's when it's prom season, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, when the moms are involved heavily. So you mentioned the 3 big cities, New York, Miami, and where else right now?
Yeah, New York. Well, so we're live across the United States. Our three biggest
Okay,
markets are New York, LA, Miami. We've seen a lot of growth recently in Dallas, Austin, and Houston, as well as
okay.
Chicago. San Francisco's been popping up and starting to grow a bit more. So yeah, I think, as we've grown the marketplace, we've really focused on building supply over the first couple of years. And that's
Yeah.
what's gotten us to where we are today with 350,000 really great
Jeez.
new high quality items located across the US. And now with some of our shipping partners, we've rolled out more and more shipping partnerships just to make shipping even faster and more reliable. To be able to get any of our 350,000 products, to any customer that has some demand in under 2 days, I think is pretty exciting. And so we're going to be going really heavy this year on demand gen and looking to grow outside of just we'll continue to go deep in New York, LA, Miami, Dallas, all those places, but continuing to grow into some of these other cities as well.
Very, very cool. You had mentioned earlier that the analogy between like maybe we could be like our Amazon in turn. I think you were alluding to the fact that Amazon started with books. And then all of a sudden now, they're basically everything in the world from cars to electronics to everything. Is that a strategy that you guys are looking at? Or is it just going to stick with fashion because of
It
that
is.
idea of sharing things and wanting cool brands and things of that nature?
It is. So yeah, clothing and accessories are definitely the first area of focus for us. Like I mentioned, we're already seeing typically just follow what our users do. So,
Yeah.
if our when we started the marketplace, we didn't restrict what people were able to upload, and we saw people upload ski gear, for example, is very popular. When we launched the marketplace, we were not thinking necessarily about ski gear, and people just started uploading it, and it makes a lot of sense. It's very expensive to have ski gear. A lot of people only go once or twice a year. Does it make sense to own it all the time? Or
Yeah.
maybe you just want a really cool ski outfit for après ski, and you don't want to have to go buy that and wear the same one the next year. And so, that's a category that's definitely popped up just based off of, our users are very intuitive. And so as we think about expanding out into other categories, it's really all under this belief of, we don't need everybody on the same street, all owning the same things when we use those
Yeah.
things so
Yeah.
infrequently. And
Yeah.
so, we think about categories like, the high definition camera is one, luggage has started to be rented on Pickle a little bit. We think about things like sporting goods and equipment, musical instruments, party supplies, kitchen appliances, lawn care and
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these categories where if you're having a party or having a gathering at your house, you don't necessarily need to go buy three coolers because you don't need to own three coolers. You can just
Yeah.
borrow them or
Yeah.
rent them from your neighbors. Same with folding chairs and a table. And that's just one example of many where we have these things that just kind of sit most of the year, and then everyone is going out and also trying to consume the same thing and having it sit. And I think there's just a much more effective and efficient way to distribute items within a community. And we like to say through our great operations team, we're able to get things to you a lot faster as well. So for example, rather than having to drive all the way to the store or wait for Amazon to have something delivered to your door, you can just get it from a neighbor, which can be within minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the case you're looking at expanding on the rental, or is that to sell too?
It'd be both, yeah. So
Yeah.
you can rent or sell on Pickle now, and so we're looking to expand that out a lot further. And this isn't something that we're going to be doing this year, but it is the goals of our company and something we're excited about in the future.
Well, if you're trying to broaden the male segment to your target audience, I would think camping equipment would be enormous.
Camping equipment is absolutely something that we're excited about. I think that'll be a great
Yeah.
category. I think there's so many really awesome categories. I think to start a marketplace just for renting camping goods is very difficult because first off, from a supply perspective, you have to get enough people that want to upload that supply, and then you have to capture the demand when there is demand, right? Which is when someone is about to go camping, which
Yeah.
happens, once or twice a year. So that's very difficult to do that. And then you have to have them remember the following year, kind of the process they went through and where
Yeah.
they got, rented the thing and all of that. But when it's just, one marketplace that is able to stretch across all these great categories and it just becomes part of your life of, okay, if I need something fast, if I, don't want to buy it new, or if I do want to buy it new and the app just knows what I like, then it's kind of this one place where you can come and achieve all of that.
I think of, well, you've never been camping. You wanna go, but you may never go again after that. It's one of those
Yeah.
experiences. It could be the greatest time of your life, or who knows what's gonna happen. Like, do you wanna invest so much money? Because it can be very expensive if you're going outside. It dawned on
Right.
me. Let
Right.
me ask you, we started off at the very beginning, we were talking about, you played football for a big name college, then you worked for a couple, I would say big name firms, and now you jumped very quickly with your partner into this entrepreneurial, adventure. What is What have you loved the most about it? What drives you to get up every day? What makes you so excited every day? Because I know there had to be a lot. Every entrepreneur I've ever spoken to always has 2 or 3 moments where, "Oh my god, something happened. We don't know if we're gonna make it," or, "How on earth can we ever overcome this?" And that's what makes a great entrepreneurs is the adaptability and resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would think so. My co-founder Julia, she went to Penn, she played lacrosse there, and since when we started working together at Blackstone, I think we both bonded over that athlete mentality. And ultimately,
Yeah.
we just both love the competition of it, and getting up every day and coming in, figuring out how to make the app better, make the customer experience better, and, ultimately just the company better. And I think it's a lot of fun to do all that. There's a lot of challenges that come up, and which are really just opportunities of problems that you get to solve. And I think we just really both love to win, and
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun when you can do that and also make hundreds of thousands of people really happy and excited along the way.
Yeah, there's definitely something there. I've talked on the podcast to about this subject all the time, particularly in recruiting, particularly recruiting salespeople. Is there is often something very special about D1 level athletes or D2 or whatever it is, but a collegiate level, because at that level, most of the athletes probably have been playing sports at the time they were little kids in some capacity. So they're always able to take coaching and criticism. They always had to overcome a loss, an injury, maybe a dietary issue. And this has gone on from the time they were young all the way through. So you get people that number one, they're kind of metric focused, right? All athletes inside their head, they're looking at stats. They're always thinking about that. And that, as you said, that desire to win is so important no matter what role you are at a company, particularly a startup company. And so that's really interesting that 2 founders, male and female, both were D-level 1 athletes, and that you initially bond over that a shared characteristic, and so, a lot of times, cultures, bubble up from the ground up, but sometimes they start at the top, and I'm imagining that well, what is the culture like? I'm imagining it has to have an element of that because that's who the 2 of you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially early on, it allowed Julia and I to both push each other pretty hard,
Yeah,
because that's just what we responded well to. I think that especially as you start to hire more and more people, you can't run a company like a football team. Not everyone's motivated
yeah,
by having to run sprints and getting yelled at and all that. But yeah, I mean, I'd say the people that do the best at Pickle are people that are really excited to win, and that they're really hungry to learn, take every opportunity that they can to get better at something and take on more responsibility. Ultimately, I think we all talk about wanting to make the customer experience better and better, but it's just this competitive drive to want to be the best that I think drives a lot of our really great employees.
Did, some of your investors, did they kind of prick the pin on this issue and really try to understand that when they because so many, of the investors I know who do early stage investing, so much of their investment is in the person because they know like you said, you guys pivoted. I just talked to a podcast guest, last week who he pivoted in Y Combinator, completely changed the business when COVID hit, and now it's worth 1.2 billion. It's like, you have to be able to make that adjustment and that idea that you're both athletes and you're not gonna quit, you're not gonna give up. I'm sure the investors saw that as a key element in who they were investing in.
Yeah, I would say so. So I mean, we
Yeah.
raised the funds after the pivot. So there was already
Mm.
that element of, we had gone through a lot of trial and error, made the pivot, weren't giving up. That we then went a year. So we did the original polling concept for about a year, and then we pivoted, and it took us about a year to a year and a half of running the marketplace before we were able to receive institutional capital. So we had raised some friends and family round early on in the polling concept. We then brought in a few more small but very impactful checks when we pivoted over to the rental marketplace. And then I would say, yeah, the first investor that kind of kickstarted the conversations was Jeff Donaker. He's at Burst Capital. He was an executive at Yelp for a number of years, and I think he saw our metrics in I want to say January, and then a couple months later in May, and we had made some big improvements along that stretch. And I think he got excited by the fact that we were just always hungry to make the company better, and we clearly weren't going to give up. And so that's when he connected us to Jeff Fleur, who had previously worked at Blackstone before starting StubHub. So we had that shared background there. Jeff also went to Penn, like Julia did, and Jeff Donaker also connected us over to FirstMark, where we work with Rick Heitzman, and Rick's son plays football in college now, so he definitely gets what it's like. And so yeah, I would say it definitely was it was an important part of it.
So I tell my son, I said, the most important thing if you want to go to college is not your degree or not what you're learning. It's the network that you're building. To me, that's the greatest value. And I think you just so clearly explained it, which is I always say it's all about people. And just that 2 minute kind of what you just described to me, all the interconnections, that's what it's really about, finding other people that you can relate to, that you have an affinity with, those types of things. That's what makes a great culture. That's what gets people excited. And so if you want to be an entrepreneur, I think it's a pretty important that you can connect with other people or find somebody as a partner if you can't do it, who can do that for you for sure.
I agree with that. I think a caveat that I'll always say, because I know some early stage people are in the audience here, is that I think sometimes people confuse that with go to every happy hour or go to every coffee chat or every
Yeah.
conference or every time a VC does a little talk or meet and greet. That oftentimes is a waste of time, and you're much better off if your goal is to bring in the first check. You're much better off building
Yeah. Yeah.
and making the company a lot better. The
Yeah.
network will come, and you'll know when there are good opportunities to meet people and talk with people. But the most success and the best people that you're going to be able to meet are by creating a really awesome company that your end user consumer is really excited about. And that, yeah, I just always kind of like to say that, because it's you see a lot of people that just think that they're gonna have a great company because they go to all these
Yeah.
networking events. And network is very important. It's important to have a great network, but it's also important to build a great company.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. With the compounding effect for you with the network 30 under 30, 20 years from now, I'd expect that network to be pretty massive and it would just organically grow. And from that come great ideas and good friendships too. So that's what it's all about too. I always tell people when you go to a startup, it's very different than a large company because there's an intimacy when you're working with people and it's going to be pass fail. We're either going to make it or we're not, and we don't have an enormous amount of resources. So much of it is just how we work together, how we help each other, how we learn from each other. Uh, that whole emotional, how we want to win as a team. And so I think that's such a big part of it. When you go work for a startup, that's different from any other experience.
Yeah, and if that doesn't drive you, startups might not be the best fit. I think you have to be prepared to have your back up against a wall and not know what you're doing, but have to do it very, very quickly. And
Yeah.
the only way to do that is through just an amazing work ethic, a lot of grit and tenacity. And we're lucky to have a very great team of people like that here at Pickle.
Well, that's really awesome. And on that note, so if someone wants to check out Pickle, check out the website. It's got a little bit of a different website. What's the best way to reach you guys and learn how to use it or download the app?
Yeah, shoponpickle.com. You can download the app on the App Store if you just search Pickle. We're on Instagram and TikTok at Shop on Pickle. We have the app is the fully functioning area. The website is more for discovery and saving items and things like that. We're rolling out
Huh.
a full web version in a couple months here, which we're really excited about. We're doing a full platform overhaul. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This has been great.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Brian. All right. Till the next one. Cheers.
See ya.
The Startup Innovators podcast is provided by MatchStar Venture Search. If you're interested in any of our executive roles or need help sourcing world class talent for your company, check out our website at matchstar.com.